So, good evening, everybody. Call to order the Select Board meeting of Tuesday, January 21st, 2024. The time is now 7:08. In the hall, we have Mr. Chito, we have Ms. Roberts, and Mr. McCrisky. Online, we have Vice Chair Carrera. Because we have a member online, our procedures have to change a bit. We'll be taking all of our votes by roll call, but also I need to read a little bit. So this is in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which extend the Governor's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, until March 31st, 2025. This meeting will be conducted both in person and virtually via Google Meets. The meeting will be recorded by SMAC Cable Television and broadcast live. It may be live streamed at www.stoughtontv.org. A recording of the meeting, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceeding will be posted on the town's website and/or SMAC as soon as possible after the meeting if the live broadcast or live streaming is unsuccessful. Times are approximate and items may be taken out of order at the chair's discretion. So seeing quorum present, all who are able to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. So the first order of business is citizens' comments, or is there anybody who has a comment? Mr. Stagnoni. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. It was good to see Steve and Deborah at the Martin Luther King event the other day. I was able to bring three of my grandchildren up, and they had fun, and I enjoyed the festivities as well. So, good job by everybody that put that together. Just going to start out with a quick thing, just saying that this has nothing to do with any employees or whatever. I'm going to be talking more about the budget that you guys are going to have on your agenda later tonight. So it's just a general comment. So it's not about any individual. I'm not sure if I missed this during, as part of what was online and submitted to the select board as part of your agenda. But one of the things I couldn't find is what was going to be available for free cash or projected to be available for free cash besides $968,000 that's going to be returned based on the overestimated debt service. Something like that, having that information would be helpful, and so I could see how much is available for, capital equipment that's later on. There also was a recommendation to put $100,000 towards the town's OPED. Again, I couldn't find anywhere where it stated what is the current debt of the unfunded liability of the town. I'm glad to see that we're putting, some significant money towards that because, I think that's one of our concerns, is going to be down the road. Something else that I didn't find is, it has to do with the merit increases and market adjustments. This item during the board's presentation was, by the town manager, was skipped over, and I didn't see any of the information that, is, and I don't know if the board has received it, as to what the market analysis looked like and what's being recommended. So I guess that, if you guys didn't have it, and, obviously, like I said, I could have missed it, I would suggest holding off on the market adjustments if the board hasn't received this information, and study that didn't include all the town positions, do a study that includes all town positions, so the board can see the whole picture and not just a snapshot. A couple of weeks ago, I was before the board, and I was suggesting to the board not to wait until next year to and hold the line on the budget. Any changes you make this year will take the pressure off the following year's budget, which the town manager has expressed to the board is going to be a tougher year. It would have been helpful to the board if they had the projections for the following year to better understand the challenge we will be facing and make informed decisions. You may ask why we will be facing headwinds in the future. One only needs to look at the last few years' budget increases. The budget increase from FY '23 to '24 went up nearly 16%. Between FY '23 and '25, the total town budget increased by 21%. And between FY '23 and FY '26, it increased by 30%. This is significantly greater than what we can raise our property taxes under Prop 2.5 of 2.5%. These unprecedented budget increases required the board to increase water, sewer, trash fees to balance the budget. And that would be by taking, and the reason for, obviously to raise those was to not subsidize them, but all the money that we got for for subsidizing was spent in these budgets. You don't need to be a mathematician to figure out this is unsustainable, and it is only a matter of time that this would catch up to us. If we didn't have the logistics park coming on the tax rolls in the next couple of years, we'd likely be looking at layoffs or needing to ask the residents for an override to fund the budget, in my opinion. Essentially, the board mortgaged the future growth. Some of the biggest costs of the town in the schools are salaries, which increased significantly over the time period. The yearly increases to salaries compounds year over year as the town year over year, this time period. The yearly increases, as employees retire, the town's OPEB is going to grow even faster. Employees' retirement benefit is 80% of their salary. We should be concerned that someday we are not going to be able to meet our obligation to our employees and could be faced with the discussions like taking place at the federal level, cutting Social Security payments because no one wants to discuss this and just keeps kicking the can down the road. On the proposed budget, I would recommend recommendations for the following in your position. Reduce the COLA to 2% for non-union employees or non-contracted employees, which looks like to be in line with other town employees. The proposed budget has some employees receiving 2% and others 3% or more. Federal employees are receiving 1.7% and 0.3% for locality pay adjustments for a total of 2%. My family members' companies have announced that they would be receiving 2% raise COLAs as well. I would suggest that the communications coordinator take on the crier and eliminate the crier moved into the IT department. I would further suggest that add only one position to the assessor's office instead of two at this time. The use of the buzzwords of like succession plan doesn't speak to workloads and actual needs, and I didn't see anything beyond that. And these are just general comments. That's all the budget ones. But while it is in the town manager's purview, it may have made more sense to have the building department take over seeing facilities management. The building commissioner and inspectors' backgrounds are aligned better with the work and knowledge needed for this position, especially when it comes to the train station renovations and future plans for the expansion of the police station. The budget has the regional schools for FY '25 funding, not including any increase. This could require you to make cuts in other areas as there is less than $5,000 not expended in the proposed budget, or we will need to use some free cash to balance the budget. Just some thoughts on that as well. I appreciate the time and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay. Any other citizens who'd like to speak? Anybody online? Okay. Seeing none, I will move on to select board comments. We'll start online just so I don't forget you. Vice Chair Carrera.
Thank you, Mr. Carey. I only have one item, and I got a call a couple of months back from a gentleman about his uncle, and it was a square for Joseph Gambrazio. they were turned down from the Veterans Approval Board there. And it was because of, they said, a lack of civic service, to the town. There was 3 brothers that left in the Gambrazio family that went to war in World War II. Luckily, they all 3 came back. 2 of them have squares, and this gentleman here has Purple Heart. He was over there. He saw some heavy duty fighting. But not all these people come back and get into the rendering of their town and doing stuff. And some of them come back, they're withdrawn. They approach life in a different way for what they've seen. So if the 3 brothers had died, we'd be looking at a different situation of a memorial that'd be out of control and well-deserved. I'd just like to ask the board that if we could look at it sometime and make a decision on it. I think the gentleman deserves a square. I've known him all my life. I've even worked for him a few times when he was doing building. He was probably one of the nicest little Italian guys you'd ever meet. And I do know that he would take food from the garden that he grew, gigantic garden on 2 spare lots, and bring them up to La Civita Court because I would go with him. And he would give it to the people at La Civita Court, all the elderly people that were there. So it's not documented. These are history things that I was lucky enough to be involved in. And so that's all I have to say. And if there's a chance, Mr. Chairman, we could look at that request.
Yeah, Vice Chair Carrera, I think that's a good idea. I've in the time that I've been here, which has been about 7 or 8 years, I don't think we've ever reviewed, in that time at least, the policies we have around this. And I imagine it probably goes back a little bit further than that. So it might not be a bad idea just to review all of our policies around square dedications, because what might have been true 20 years ago or 15 years ago might not be true today. And we might want to tweak those requirements, or we may choose not to, but it's worth taking a look at.
And again, Mr. Chairman, Joe would say to me, hey, we got this request, you know this person, you know how he is, you know what he's done for the town, but it's hard to prove the latter. You can show what they did for war and what they did for the country, but to see 3 brothers go off at that time, actually my great uncle was supposed to go with them, but he got hurt when they were firing howitzers, and he wasn't able to go, but they all went, and he ended up disabled. So these gentlemen were always around me, and Joe knows who I'm talking about. So I do appreciate us looking into it, but I think this is like something that's almost, I don't want to say it's a no-brainer, but if we don't want to chew up 3 squares with 3 different locations, we could do like when Jean Fleming was the town manager, she requested to me that we name Gashora Park, and put all the brothers on there. If there was some place we could put all 3 of them on a place that's either close to where they grow up or something like that, maybe that could work. So we're not maintaining 3 squares, but one with 3 people getting recognition. And then they'd be all together again in our life as they were in their own.
So if it's okay with scheduling maybe the second meeting that we have in February, does that sound okay? It'd be somewhere around the 15th-ish?
That's fine.
Yeah, Mr. McCrisky, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to go and ask Scott if he'd like to make a motion, because, I've been vocal on this issue of the squares, that the 20-year item for service to the youth sports or whatever was, I don't recall ever seeing minutes that reflect that vote that was done by a previous veterans agent. That is the authority of the Select Board. And if Scott didn't want to make a motion, I would make a motion right now to authorize the placing of that square. And
I would like to make a motion, Joe.
okay, all right, so,
Go ahead, sorry.
so, yeah, no, I didn't mean it.
Just put it on an agenda to make sure that we don't have any issues with that, but we can put it in the next one.
Well, if you want to put it on the next agenda then, because that's our authority. There are people that have served this town and didn't volunteer to youth sports or things like that, and they were very, very well known. And we could sit here and name them all day long. So I think this has been a sticking point. Since I got back in 2019, this has been a sticking point that's come up over and over and over. And unfortunately, we have the right to change that. It's our authority to do these squares. And this family has definitely stood apart in the town of Stoughton. I don't know about Scott with putting up one location for multiple, because Patsy and Johnny already have their squares.
Right.
And I think it would probably be more fitting for Joe's to be up in the Turnpike Street area, somewhere closer to where he lived, when he passed. So, but yeah, if we put it on the next agenda, because this is something it's our authority to do, and it's been
Absolutely.
hanging
So
out.
I'll just, in the interest of full disclosure, so we're not going to meet again in January.
Okay.
So our next meeting is the 4th.
Okay.
Which is going to be the day after special town meeting. And if there's a second special town meeting, it'll be sandwiched in between 2 days. So I thought it would be a good idea to make that schedule a little bit light.
Okay.
I don't mind putting this on there.
Okay.
Happy to do it. But, also if we are all exhausted, some things might actually have to move to the next meeting. But it's just an interest. If this is a very high priority, then we'll put it on.
This should be a 5-minute discussion.
Then, yeah, we'll put it on and we'll knock it out.
Okay.
That'll be great.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. I just don't want to, if we have something else to come up, I just don't want to make sure we have a time.
No,
for
and
that.
I thank Scott for bringing it up, because I was going to bring it up as well. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Joe.
Mr. Carrera, Vice Chair Carrera, do you have any other comments?
No, that's it, Mr. Cady, Chairman, sir.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll move on to Mr. Gito.
I just remind people to read up on the schools. That vote's coming up the 3rd, as you indicated, and it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Roberts.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Testing. Didn't sound like it's working. But can you hear me?
Yes.
I was just going to follow up on the comments that Vice Chair Carrera made and Mr. McCrisky. Is it deadline driven? Because I can't recall the veteran cycle, when they need to get the paperwork in so they can do it all of them at the same time with the Heroes banner and all like that. So is time of the essence? Do we need to do that sooner than later? So can we wait until that February date that you mentioned, or do we need to do it sooner? Just so he's in that rotation. And I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think most of the dedications happen when the weather starts to get a little bit warmer. But I don't know what all of the programming behind the scenes looks like. So I guess there's probably quite a bit. But I think I was going to try and keep that agenda very light anyway. We'll put it on there. And if we're not able to get to it, then we'll just move it to the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. McCrisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to announce the passing of a longtime Stoughton resident who was very well known in her family business. The passing of Ruth Goulston, the wife of Jerry Goulston, owner of Pages, who passed away on January 18th. And it was a love story. If anybody knows Jerry and Ruthie, they were together all the time, traveled together, spent a lot of time down in Puerto Rico. The local business, Pages, is a family institution down in the Pinecrest area. It goes back to Jerry in his young days, his family, and a lot of people back, when their husbands were out away in World War II. That was the store that you went, and money wasn't the issue. It was having food and being a part of the community. Ruthie and the Goulston family have been there for every Stoughton program that I can think of, youth sports, Halloween events that were run, Christmas events. They're always there to be giving. Jerry has a fondness for the seniors in town and continues this, to this day, making donations for, some of the assisted care livings and different programs at the Council on Aging. Ruth leaves behind Jerry, who they were married for 64 years. They have a daughter, Marilyn Gordon, with her husband, Al, a daughter, Ann McNaughton, and her husband, Rob, and a daughter, Dina Welch, and grandsons, Bradley, Jeffrey Gordon, and granddaughters, Gordon Kester, Andrea, and Isabel McNaughton. Ruthie is going to be missed in Stoughton, and I just wanted to, on behalf of the Select Board and the residents of Stoughton, offer our most sincere condolences to the family of Ruthie Goulston, with Jerry Goulston and their daughters, son-in-laws, and wish them sincere condolences, and remember Ruthie in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I only have two comments. The first one's very brief. I just wanted to congratulate the SEOC for they held an event yesterday celebrating the life of Martin Luther King. I was at the library. The library staff did an amazing job, and the SEOC did an awesome job, which is typical. They always do great, and especially under the leadership of Ms. Deborah Roberts, who knows how to throw a party. So, but it was a really thoughtful, very just an excellent event that was both celebratory, but also had a lot of serious moments where people really had moments to reflect. So I just wanted to thank her for and the SEOC for setting that up and running it. They did an amazing job. The other thing I'd like to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Of course. Thank you. The other thing I'd like to mention is that there's a town meeting on February 3rd, so that we will not meet, but probably before that, unless there's some sort of emergency. This year, I was asked last year, but I wasn't able to produce it in time. But I was asked this year to write a letter for the book, and I did. It's short. I'd just like to read it here, if you don't mind. It says, "Dear members of town meeting, this has been an historic year for Stoughton Town Meeting. You may not have noticed, but this is the third special town meeting we've had in fiscal year 2025. I've asked a few Stoughton history buffs, and they are not aware of this ever having happened in the history of our town. For each, a primary component of the meeting was and will be a project to build a new elementary school in Stoughton. I find it poetic that your historic efforts very much center around your collective concerns in determining what the future of our town should be. Personally, I'm proud to have been part of this process, but I also find myself in awe of the people in my community who have attentively advocated for their interests as well as the interests of their neighbors. I moved to Stoughton in 2007, and this same phenomenon became immediately apparent to me then. The people of Stoughton look out for one another, and they take responsibility for one another. This is rarer than you might realize, and more precious gift than you probably appreciate, but being second nature to most of you. I am so grateful to all of you. As we tackle this final set of questions, I want you all to be mindful of the impact your decisions in this legislative body will have on the future of our town. We enjoyed some flexibility previously, but I'm certain that the outcome of this vote will be final and irreversible. I know the burden of this responsibility is intense, but there is no group of people I have greater faith in to make the best decision for the town we all love. As a father and husband, a neighbor, a voter, a taxpayer, a peer town meeting representative, and chair of the Stoughton Select Board, I sincerely thank you for your service to the town of Stoughton. Be well, Steve Cavey." So it's going to be a interesting night, and we'll see how that goes. Next on the agenda is town manager's comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Just for the information of town residents, this office sent out a hard copy of the Independent South School Working Group report that it published last month. It was sent to all town meeting representatives. If any members of the community would like a copy of that report, feel free to contact my office. We'd be happy to photocopy it for you and even deliver it to your house if you're unable to get to Town Hall. Mr. Chairman, I briefly, and I wish the gentleman had not left the room, I briefly want to address just a couple of his comments, only because I don't want any misunderstanding among the community. There were several points of data that the gentleman is simply mistaken. And I would invite him publicly, rather than coming here and giving an analysis of a budget that has been under construction for several months, that he just come into our office and meet with myself and my assistant, Mark Tisdale, and our finance director, Elizabeth. I think we could clarify a lot of things for the gentleman on the FY26 budget. It is a challenging budget, but to suggest that we give 2% COLAs to high-performing employees in a two-year market where inflation has averaged 7 to 9% would probably result in the highest rate of attrition this town has ever seen. So again, I would like to just renew my invitation to the gentleman. I know John, he is a gentleman, but I'd renew my invitation to him to come and stay at this meeting and to hear the budget deliberations. I think it would forestall a lot of his misunderstandings of the current budget situation and the current budget we've submitted to this board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. There is one item I'd like to take out of order. I noticed that there's...
Mr. Chairman, before, could I ask a question of the town manager?
Of course.
You had indicated earlier, sir, that we would be talking about the privatization of trash and so on. I guess I'm interested knowing how we're doing on that and when you plan to deal with it. I guess part of the reason that I'm asking the question is that the faster we deal with that issue and move people into other positions if they choose to do that, I think the better off the town is going to be. So, thank you.
Mr. Gito, I completely agree with what you just said. It's the looming crises facing this town. So a month ago, we formed a waste minimization source reduction committee to work in town. We're setting up a SMAC program for that working group to give presentations not only to the town but to the school children about the importance of reducing waste through recycling, waste minimization, and source reduction. We have met with 2 vendors so far and with the DEP with regard to our options, and there are really 3 options. Do nothing, continue to do it as we're doing it, and enjoy the last 5 years of competitive pricing from CMAS. It's not an option I would recommend. Option 2 is put a full court press on recycling in this town. The state is averaging 28% recycling per town average. Stoughton is at 9% recycling. The third option is to outsource to an independent hauler that has got 20-year contracts with out-of-state facilities and the rail spurs needed to get it there. So as we promised people at the municipal waste information session, I think it was the end of November, within 1 year, we will have all that data in place. We'll be making a policy recommendation to you, to the board, and we'll be coming forth with our recommendation and your vote on the way this town has chosen, through its leaders, to manage this trash crisis. I think it's unreasonable to think that we'll continue the way we're doing it right now. It's simply not sustainable. Some experts have estimated that within 3 years, those that don't have fixed contract, the cost of their municipal waste disposal could go up as it goes out of state by a factor of 7 to 10 times. So it's our major challenge, and I was going to call you, Lou, this week to see if you wanted to work with us on this committee. I think you'd be a valuable asset. Thank you for asking.
I would like to do that, but I guess I'm still interested in knowing what your time schedule is to get back to us on that, or to move this forward.
We've promised the town would have a recommendation for them by next November. I would suspect to the board, we'll be done with our analysis and have that to you by as early as late spring. This spring. Why don't we call it June 1st to be safe?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I noticed there's one of the members online, one of the people online, is likely here because of one of the items on the consent agenda. And I'd like to just knock that out and allow them a chance to go on with the rest of their day. So this is for, we'll pick up the consent agenda right now. We have 4 items. Item A, approval of open session minutes of December 17th, 2024. Item B is approval of Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission, ABCC forms. This is licensees who fail to renew, seasonal population form, and annual report. C is license agreement for the use of parcel of land recorded on map 29, lot 37, Elm Street, between the town of Stoughton and Stoughton Youth Baseball. And item D is license agreement for the use of parcel of land recorded at map 42, lot 29, Drake Avenue, lot 29, Drake Avenue, between the town and Stoughton Youth Baseball. Does anybody have any questions? Would anybody like to pull any items? Seeing none. So there's a motion to approve by Mr. Gito, seconded by Mr. McCrisky. Because we have a member online, we'll have to do a roll call vote. So Mr. Carrera?
Is there discussion, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there discussion?
On the consent agenda, sure.
Who are the new principals of the Stoughton Youth Baseball? Is it the people that were there before, or are there new members?
I believe it's new members, and I think one of the members, Heather O'Hara, is on right now.
I am. Hi. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So my name is Heather. I'm the new president of Stoughton Youth Baseball, but I've been on the board for the last 4 or 5 years. So this is just my first year as the president.
That answers my question, sir.
Thank you so
So I
much.
wanted everybody to know who was the president.
Great. Well, that's me.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you all for all the things that you guys do.
Thank you so much. So Mr. Carrera, on the motion,
I vote aye.
Mr. Gito,
Yes.
Ms. Roberts,
Yes.
Mr. McCrisky?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So unanimous for the consent agenda and for youth baseball. Have a wonderful season. Looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you so much, guys. Coming
Thank
out
you.
of the field anytime.
Thank you. Okay, so next item, we'll go back to number 5. This is the fiscal 26 operating budget. Our last couple of meetings have been largely questions and a couple of, not proposals quite yet, but there's some seem like people might be heading in that direction. But before we get into proposals, any further proposals for changes, I would just like to confirm that Vice Chair Carrera has had a chance to ask questions. He wasn't able to attend our last meeting. So, sir, if you have any questions.
Not right now. I'll handle what I have to handle on the floor if I have any questions. We can just move on.
Okay, thank you. So
Thank you, Steve.
Absolutely. So then the question is whether or not right now we can approve the budget as is. If people want to make changes, they can make motions to make those changes. And with a second, followed by a majority vote, we'll make those changes. The one thing I ask, though, is that if anybody is looking to make an increase to any account, that they also provide an offset where that money is coming from within this budget. Mr. Cheeto.
The motions that I would be making would be, for the most part, reductions instead of increases.
Yeah, that won't have any impact then, so
I'm sorry.
that wouldn't, I don't think we necessarily have to worry about that then.
Right.
It's just if there's an increase, I want to know where the money's coming from.
I guess I would like to go back to sort of the overall look at this budget and the longer term implications of what's going on in the world. And we've talked quite a bit about fiscal cliff in 2017 or earlier. And I think we need to not wait until 2027, excuse me. 17 was a while ago. We wouldn't go out and buy a new car if we thought we were going to get cut back to half-time instead of full-time for the next few years. So we'd want to make whatever changes we were going to make as early as possible and reserve our resources to take care of those situations. I think the town is in the same position. We also have a very important item that both you and I talked about this evening, the school. And so to repeat what Ms. Roberts said at the last meeting that we had, this isn't personal. It's not directed at anyone. It is about positions and salary increases and so on. And while I don't believe that 2% may be what we're going to be doing, I do believe that that we've issued 3% for a number of people, and we said we were going to set our budget at 3.8. And so my suggestions are based on reducing to 3% some of the other positions in the town, and I can go line by line and do that if you would like. And I don't know whether you want me to. We have a vote on each one, or you want to bundle them. However you'd like to do it, it's fine with me.
No, it is, however, if you're looking to make motions, it's however you'd like to couple them.
Okay.
You can
Well,
put them
then
together.
I'll just go through.
Go one by one? It's up to
Do
you.
them one at a time. And with reference to the budget, I'll give you the page number, the organizational code, the object code, and the reduction.
Perfect, thank you.
Are we ready?
Yes.
On page 6, I move that we change the budget of the town manager. That would be organizational code 123. the DEI consultant object class 530037 from $30,000 to $10,000. The purpose is just to reduce the budget.
Okay.
And still provide service in that area.
There's a motion on the floor to reduce the DEI consultant in the town manager's budget, which is on page 6, with the department code of 0112301, 530037. Currently, the budget is for $30,000, and the motion is to reduce that by $20,000 to a total of $10,000. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Mr. Gito, seconded by Vice Chair Carrera. So we can go straight to a vote. If there's any discussion, now's the time.
Yes, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Through you to Mr. Gito, how do you justify a $10,000 expense amount? What do you think can be done with $10,000 for a fiscal year?
What has been done with $30,000 for this past fiscal year?
It has been reviewing, I guess I should defer to the town manager and not just talk off the cuff. But while he's in discussion with our director of finance, I could say it had to do with a review of legal documents and consultation. But I will defer to.
And how much money has been spent so far?
You have an answer? It should be, it was on the larger. Oh, yeah. So the question was through Mr. Chairman to Mr. Gito, in his estimation, what type of expenses does he believe can be made for $10,000 in a fiscal year for a consultant? I just wanted some justification. I'm
And-
going to vote against it, but for the audience, I would like to have
And
that
I guess the second part of that was how much has been spent so far?
We'll ask Biz to look how much has been spent, and what is spent is dependent upon programming. You can have a very active program in town, hosting a number of events, or you can have none. And so really it's a function of our commitment to the program, and headed up by a very enthusiastic committee. So I really can't answer how much. It's not like it's a monthly allocation. It can all be used in one event, the last day of the fiscal year. It may not be used at all. So really, I would leave it to the people that are directing the programs.
Excuse me, Mr. Calder.
Yes.
That is for the expense of an event. The question is regarding a consultant, a DEI consultant that was $30,000 budgeted, and the ask is to reduce it to $10,000. And I don't foresee how that would work, because legal advice, review of documents is very expensive in the whole scheme of things. And the question to me for Mr. Gito was, what has this consultant done in the past? And I spoke out of turn, seeing that you were talking to the director of finance, but as I recall, it was related to the review of bylaws and review of documents that were presented to town meeting in the past, and currently some information and documents that were in the procurement department, and some review of surveys that we are proposing. But that's just off the cuff, and I don't have an itemized list of costs allocated to each of those expenses.
You're correct, Deborah. The legal expense for DEI does go to this category and not to legal. Mr. Dolan has done yeoman's work in helping to shape and prepare, make sure everything is aligned with state, federal, local laws, regulations, bylaws, the charter. So I'm trying to buy time while Biz is trying to get online to look up how much we've spent.
I'm sorry, just give me a minute if you don't mind.
What I was whispering to Biz, are we categorizing Dolan's legal fees in our legal account or in our DEI account when he does DEI work? You'll stand by a second. See, she's been a while, so the computer is not recognizing her signing in.
We are so glad to see her. We were very concerned.
Thank you. Let's see. 1, 2, 3.
So the current account is saying we have not spent money, but that means that we have categorized legal expense under legal expense and not in DEI. So we'll have to go back and look at what that exact number is. My guess, it's probably between $6,000 and $8,000. But that's a guess based upon I know the work that he's been doing. That should be reclassified from legal into DEI.
I just want to see what we received for phone call.
So we're still waiting for more input? Okay.
She's looking
Yeah,
for it.
take your time,
If you're
take
still
your
waiting for it. sure.
Am I expecting something more here? Or?
Lou, Biz is looking up to see how much of Jack Dolan has charged us because he's been booked in the legal account. When he does DEI work, it should have been booked in the DEI account. I believe it's somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000, $5,000 and $7,000 so far year to date.
So far, we have spent to Mr. Dolan $16,000.
Yes, would you?
Oh, I am so sorry.
Yeah, but that can't all be for DEI.
Okay, so we have we do have a retainer agreement with Mr. Dolan in the amount of $6,000. And above the $6,000, we would more than likely be categorizing as DEI, which is $4,132.50.
Spent year to date?
Spent year to date for FY '25.
That was for FY '25. Okay.
Current year.
What it would seem to me, and I could be wrong, is that a lot of the things that need to be done in terms of looking at policies are sort of, you do that one, you move on to something else, and so on. I presume that a lot of the work would be done in looking at how the town is operating and complying with or making suggestions on how the town operates would be sort of a one-time piece, and then there'd be other things that would come up on a follow-up basis. And so my interest is to make sure that there's work done, and at the same time, not expect that you'd have the same amount of work year to year. Because the kind of things that are generally done in this area are things where you do look at a policy, and that sort of triggers some other things, so that you have a policy that sort of cascades to other areas. So you still deal with the items, and you deal with new things coming up as time goes on, but it's not always the same amount. And that's why not wanting to, I was trying to eviscerate the program, just trying to say, okay, you know, you're starting out, you've got a big effort going on, and then you have a maintenance sort of program. That's why $10,000 is still there. So that's my idea of that.
Thank you very much. Before Mr. Coulter speaks and gives you a concrete answer, I remember talking with Mr. Coulter. This was maybe a year and a half or so ago when we first started talking about a consultant and talking about attorney Jack Dolan. And we said, prior to that time, we didn't know the volume of work that needed to be done. And we first started out, so this is how we troubleshoot. We were troubleshooting the issue. We said we knew we didn't want to bring in a full-time FTE because we didn't know how much work, and we knew we're not going to do that much work for year one and possibly year two. So that's how we decided on a consultant. But I can see why you asked the question. As you review documents, you go to the next document. But the documentation that's here, it's so embedded, it's like you pull back the skin of an onion and then you find another policy you need to look at it. And all of it is contingent on the next thing, which is on the next thing. But that's from a layman's perspective, so I'll hand it through you, Mr. Chairman, back to Mr. Coulter to answer that question.
So I guess my response to that would be somewhat of a punt. I'm not intimately involved in the programming that's done. That's done by a hardworking outside committee. There are few, if any, employees involved in that. So I don't want to claim to have all the detail. But Lou, I want to point something out that the argument you've been making for quite a while, and I've always agreed with you, is we don't know what crises will come up during the year that will require consultants. And as you've pointed out in the town manager's office, we have a very modest consultant budget. And you've often recommended that it be increased significantly. I think about the recent history. We had to bring in DLS when the former finance manager left to the tune of $50,000 consulting fee that we didn't have budgeted. Some of that money came from the unused consulting line item from DEI, which we're allowed to transfer in the last 2 months of the fiscal year, May and June. Last year, we had a crisis in the assessor's office and had to bring in 2 high-powered consultants not budgeted, and some of that money came from the DEI line item that was allocated but not used. So would I change it? It's beyond us now. It's in the hands of the board, so that's your vote. But in the spirit of full disclosure, I do look at that number and say if the outside DEI committee doing the work doesn't spend that, it's good to know it's available to transfer in the last 2 months of the fiscal year should we have a crisis and need an outside consultant. I guess that's the best way I can answer that question, and really it's in the hands of the board.
Might I?
So
The
we have-
point that you're making is a very real one and the same. We set our budgets oftentimes based on last year's estimate. We have to go 2 years back to find out what really happened. When we look back at 2024, we had a particularly interesting year. First of all, we didn't have this line item, I don't believe, in it at the time, but we did, okay. I'm sort of going a little bit beyond the scope of just this one particular item, Mr. Chair, because I think it sort of gets to the the overall look at a budget in times that are going to be tough.
May I just state, we've
if-
been talking
if-
on this one topic for about 20 minutes, and if you have a lot of items that you want to cover, and we're going to do 20 minutes apiece, we're going to be here for a very long time. So if you
Well, I don't know how, I have raised a number of issues. We are talking about this. You told me that what I needed to do on each item was to make a motion. So that's what I'm doing.
20 minutes ago, and now we've had this
I
discussion,
only have 20 minutes to discuss this whole thing, huh?
this one item.
Okay.
This is only one item that's
Yeah.
taking 20 minutes
Well,
to get through. If you've
I'll
got
say this
100
one time and I won't have to say it again. How about that?
That's fair, but I want to get home tonight.
Yeah.
So let's move it along.
Within $100 million budget, we have in the past generally had $2 or $3 million of carryover or what you'd call free cash. In 2024, we did not have that because we had a crisis in the in our health benefits piece, and the schools basically bailed us out. At the same time that they were bailing us out, there were a number of other very large increases that occurred within that budget, which included money that went into the police department and other major increases. And I could go through them if you'd like, but I don't want to do that. So having the money in different pots and being able to move it in the last couple of months is important. It's also important that we, when we're looking at a tight budget, that we try to do that sparingly rather than not. That's the end of that part of that. But it carries forward on each of the items. I mean, we know how to do budgeting, I think.
Okay, so there
That's
was,
where I am. So I'm done. We can vote on that.
thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, we'll take a vote. Mr. Carrera, on the motion to reduce as DI consultant on page 6 of the budget from 30,000 to 10,000.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Gito?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts?
No.
Mr. McCrisky?
No.
I vote no as well. Motion fails.
Second motion is on page 9. And these next two are on page 9, and they are the first one is to change the budget of Town Accountant Code number 135, Department Head, Object Class number 511051 from $153,500 to $147,805, a change of $5,695. And the purpose is 3% rather than a 7% increase.
Could you give me the...
And the
value-
reason for saying that is that I think that we need to be real cautious about the positions that we provide additional resources to. And I don't think in a time where we say we want to keep the budget at 3.8, that we continue to give raises to department heads, and we're keeping the numbers down for other people. sometimes, and in some jobs, in some locations, people realize that there's a difference between going to the store and buying bread and paying off a mortgage on a second house. And I think we need to, in tough times, think about making sure that there's food on the table for people and that we're dealing with some of the things that are really essential. So that is sort of the theme for several of these following items.
Okay. Just before we go, would you like to make a motion, and then we'll see if there's a second? The motion is,
I don't know if there's going to be a second to that or not. I can't second my own motion. I made the motion.
so the motion is to reduce,
I gave the reason for it.
Got
If
it.
there's no second, then we move on to the next one.
so the motion is to reduce the line item under the town accountant's budget, page 9, department head, from 153,500 to 147,805, which is a total change of reduction of $5,695. Is there a second? Okay, motion fails for lack of a second.
Okay. Just to give context to these, the list that I have totals about $600,000. The next one is page 9, motion to change the budget of town accountant code number 135, assistant town accountant, object class 511052, from $110,512 to $90,079, a change of $20,000. The purpose is to set the increase at 3% rather than 26.4%.
Okay, so
Is that a motion?
That is a motion. That was the first thing I said, motion to change.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to change the budget of town accountant code listed as assistant town accountant, object class 511052, from $110,512 to $90,079, which is a total change of $20,433. I'm just going to double check that.
Point of interest, Mr.
Stated the
Chairman.
reason from my perspective on that.
Okay.
Point of order,
Okay, so
Mr. Chairman.
there's a motion, there's a second. Motion was made by Mr. Gito, seconded by Vice Chair Carrera. Is there any discussion on this? Okay. And then all in,
Point of interest, sir.
somebody want to speak?
Yes, if you don't mind. Just a point of interest for the gentleman. Town meeting, annual town meeting, increased, last November, increased the assistant town accountant's salary to 105. And the reason we did that at that time is when we hired the assistant town accountant, we were in the middle of a budget year. We couldn't afford anywhere near what the market pays for an assistant town accountant, but we had to pay her what the previous auditor was getting. That was the salary slot that was available. With an understanding that when we got to fiscal 26, we would adjust it accordingly. So what we're asking for is an increase from 105, which is our current salary, which is different than last year's budget, obviously, to 110,512. That is still below not only market, but what we pay other accountants in other departments within the town. But it was a promise made, a contractual promise made when we hired the individual, that we would bring her up to market in the next full budget year. And if that's not footnoted, is that footnoted in the budget? Let me check, because Mr.
It
Gino.
is. It's foot number 2.
So that is footnoted in the budget.
Internal-
Go ahead.
The internal auditor salary was, the internal auditor salary from the town manager's office, per the footnote, was transferred to the town accountant's office. So that's where the 105 is, between the two. And we did, at town meeting, we did a budgetary adjustment to move funds from the town manager's budget lines to the town accountant's budget lines to cover these issues.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Lou, I think this may be helpful to you as well. On the next 4 items, I know we haven't received them yet, but they're the same comment. All great leaders understand that they don't eat until everybody in their team has eaten. The people in the labor market in the town have all been satisfied, all except for one CPA, and will all tell you they were treated very fairly and they're very happy with their new contracts. DPW is the last one to get done. The managers in this department, many of them have been paid under market for quite a long time. I mean, quite a long time, and in some cases substantially, and we're still collecting all the comps, but one need not look further than the school department. And I think that's a fair comparison. It's the one closest to us. And in many cases, department heads and senior staff are paid anywhere from 15 to 20% less than our colleagues over in the school department. So as we look at that, that's one point of data. Another point of data as we look externally, as we have for the town clerk's office. We're not even at the mean or the middle in terms of salary comparisons for the professional staff in this town. And I believe, and I say this with absolute sincerity, we've got the most extraordinary professional staff I've ever had the distinct honor of working with. And they're so loyal that they have stayed here for years without being paid at the middle of the market. And we need to adjust that. Now, just for the record, we said we'd come in at 3.8. The municipal side of this budget came in at 3.5. So we've been very conservative in our budgeting approaches, contrary to the speaker earlier this evening in the citizens' comments. And I believe that if we don't adjust the rates so that they're comparable internally with other departments and externally within their function, within their professional function, we're going to lose good people at a time, particularly in finance, where we need them the most. On these next 4 positions, as we face into headwinds, boy, oh boy, oh boy, I'm glad we have this financial team. And that's all I'd like to say about those next 5 items, including treasurer, collector, another town accountant, and assessing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So there was a motion made by Mr. Gito, seconded by by Vice Chair Carrera. All in favor, Mr. Carrera?
Yes.
Mr. Gito? Ms. Roberts?
No.
Mr. McCrisky?
No?
I vote no as well. Motion fails, 2-3. Are there any further motions? Would you mind turning your mic on? Your microphone is off.
I don't want to take up a tremendous amount of time of this board. At the same time, I don't agree with many of the items on this. I would like to go to the largest item in this category and have the discussion on that. And that would be on page 26. The police, motion to change the budget of police code, the police code number 210, deputy police chief's object class number 511052, from $373,421 to $274,495. That's $274,495. A change of $98,926. The purpose is to have a 3% raise from the salary of one of the officers. I doubled that and did the calculations on the basis of that. The salary increase, if you were to double it from 2025 to 2026, is 40.1%. And that seems to be quite a bit of money. That is a salary increase of 40% in that line item.
Mr. Chairman.
And then,
Excuse me, Lou, I'm sorry. Pardon me, sir.
go ahead.
No, excuse me, you first. I thought you were finished, sir.
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Lou. Just a point of information, I know that you would want to know this, and that's the only reason I'm asking for a point of information. That's why it's so important to go through all of these salaries. And I just whispered to Mark, I think I need to write a narrative for every one of these that explains why we wouldn't give a 40% pay increase to anybody under any circumstances. It's important to understand that the two deputies are under a contract where all of the stipends are rolled into the base salary, whereas our former deputy had almost $40,000 in stipends in addition to his salary. So our intent was to get rid of as many stipends as we can get for management people and put it into the agreement so it's transparent and upfront, as opposed to paying a modest base salary with another $40,000 in stipends for education. Education alone, I think, was $27,000.
The education budget, just for your information, increased by about $490,000 from one year to the next.
Education.
And that is the education budget. Remember we changed that. We went out of civil service.
Yes.
And we decided to give
The Quinn bill.
the higher number for all of the people rather than the old way of doing business.
You're correct. And that is given in the form of a stipend for the rank and file. For these positions, we modeled it right after the chief's contract, where there's no stipends. It's all included in the base salary. So it does look like it's 40%, except with the former deputy, who I miss dearly, There was his salary plus this stipend, this stipend, this stipend, and this stipend, which were in different line items. So I just wanted to point that out to you, Lou. That's all.
Just as a
So,
point of information, the salary between fiscal year '25 and town meeting approved versus the proposed budget is a decrease in education of $27,118. I'm assuming that's from the education stipends? Sorry, Tom?
what?
Apologies. The education incentive pay between what town meeting approved in 2025 versus what you're proposing for 2026 is a decrease of $27,000. Is that because of these, the stipend that was originally or formerly part of the deputy salary?
Were stipends, and now they're in the base pay.
Thank you.
I can absolutely see why that question would be asked, and I'm glad it's being asked. I'm going to take every one of these comments that Lou has taken the time to make, and I appreciate it, and put a narrative explaining those subtleties in each one to include in the budget package. So it'll be a good addition.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Ms. Roberts would like to speak, but are you still advocating for this?
And I don't think we got a second on that. Is that correct?
So the motion was to make a reduction in the deputy chief line item on page 26 to reduce it from $373,421, which is a salary, to $274,495, which is a total reduction of $98,926. It's made by Mr. Gito. Is there a second? Okay. Motion fails for lack of a second.
Okie dokie. Let's just get to the next item that's a large item, and that the same thing is true for the police and the fire. And they both have, I'll do page 26. Motion to change the budget of police code of police, that's the code 210, overtime, object class number 51300, from $640,000 to $440,000. That's a change of $200,000. The purpose, with increase in staff, overtime should go down to provide a perspective at the average patrol staff base pay of $82,000. This amounts to a 7.8 increase in FTEs if we were to translate that $200,000. No, translate that $640,000. That's 7.8 FTEs, or 14.4% of the number of 54 patrolmen that we have. So that seems to be a pretty high number for overtime. Now, what we've said we were going to do is get out of civil service and be able to get people in working, which I think we've done, and yet we're maintaining our overtime pay. Usually, if you have a full complement of people, you don't have to have so much overtime. But we seem to do that, or we seem to believe we're going to do that. And that's true in this department, and it's true in the fire department as well. So if you were to take, if I might just expand this discussion so that we can we can have some sense of what this is. The total amount of money spent for police and fire is almost $18 million. Almost 18. And what I'm talking about here, if you were to deal with just the overtime budget, that would be $400,000. That is somewhere around 3% of the budget for those two public safety operations. It seems to me that we could get a little bit more attention paid in this area, especially where we're able to move items around to pay for whatever we need to pay for. We could at least save $400,000. But in this case, I'm only talking about $200,000. But that's basically $400,000 in that budget that I think we could save and put away to use in out years.
Thank you. So there's a
That's my
motion on the floor to reduce the line item of the police budget, page 26, department number 0121001, 513000. Description is overtime. The current value is $640,000. Recommended value, the motion is to reduce it to $440,000, which is a net reduction of $200,000. So the motion has been made by Mr. Gito. Is there a second?
Crickets.
Motion fails for lack of a second.
Let me stop wasting your time.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
just for the record, I want to thank Mr. Gito for raising these issues, and I mean that sincerely, Lou. Every one of these issues deserve an explanation, and if nothing else, even though they weren't passed, it'll provide for a better document to town meeting as we provide these explanations. So I thank you.
That
So are there
kill me
anybody?
with faint praise. Thank you.
I mean it sincerely.
I'll just stop there.
It's your right to speak if you'd like to. So
No, look at,
Okay, so
I'm already a skunk at a lawn party. There's no.
no,
I think
it's
I'll
not. You're
find-
able to
I'll
express your
find
feelings
another
here,
place
same as
to
any
be.
other member. So we've had a couple there. Is there any other recommended adjustments from any other members of the select board?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the budget?
Motion to approve the budget.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve the budget as it currently is, with no changes, has been made by Ms. Roberts, seconded by Mr. McCrisky. All in favor? We'll start with Mr. Carrera.
Yes.
Mr. Gito?
No.
Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. McCrisky?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion passes 4-1. So that's, before we move on, I actually just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the finance team, for the town manager, as well as the assistant town managers. Thank you very much for all the work you guys have done. Our town accountant and assistant town accountant, thank you for providing this budget to us. It's ready to move on to the finance committee. I'm sure after whatever changes you'd like to make to adjust the footnotes, they're going to welcome it. And thank you so much for all the hard work.
Thank you, members.
The next item on the agenda is the 2025 annual town meeting warrant. This is for fiscal year 2026, occurring, the meeting itself occurs in May of 2025. Specifically, let's see, get the right date. That would be May 5th, 2025. At this point, I think all we really have to do is just open the warrant and let it ride from there. Is there a motion to open the warrant?
So made.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mr. Gito, seconded by Mr. Carrera. All in favor, Mr. Carrera?
Yes.
Mr. Gito? Ms. Roberts? Yes. Mr. McCrisky?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Warrant is now open. Yeah, don't need, no, we're good. So I think we got everything we need. I know there, actually, just before you go, Mr. Tisdale, I did have a couple questions. Warrant's open now. I have been talking to both you and Mr. Winter about the warrant. It sounds like most of the articles are in, and it also sounds like we're going to be exiting this process probably when we close the warrant. We'll probably have almost all the motions written as well. So it sounds like, from what I said, this has probably been the tightest, best coordinated town meeting so far, and it hasn't even begun yet. Now everyone just has to follow your example.
Well, enough with the praise, Mr. Cavey. This is just what you guys pay us to do here. Just to recap, as you know, the warrant closes on the 4th of February, the first Tuesday of the month per the charter. And then 2 days after that, you have to forward that document by the charter to the Finance Committee. For the last few weeks now, I've been giving you the summary chart of just the topic of the article. A lot of the first 15 or so are the ones you see every year at town meeting. The other ones have grown over time, capital articles, things of that nature. Right now, the warrant's under construction. So behind the scenes, it's actually being crafted. We have town council working on article language. Our accounting department's working with the money part, and it's in very good shape. So you'll see a very good document in front of you at your next meeting, with hopefully all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted, so you can vote on it, sign it that night, and move it along. In previous years, this not last year, but previous years, sometimes that the next day or two is the worst day of everybody's lives because everybody's trying to, go through the article language, cross the T's, dot the I's, and that, to me, it's not what those 2 days are meant for. What I put in front of you tonight also, I can send it electronically, I'll put it on the website, is the backup information for a lot of the articles, for mostly the capital articles. The collective bargaining agreements are in there, a lot of the CPC articles, things like that. So just please review it before the next meeting. If you have any questions, you can email me. I've been sort of the gatekeeper of organizing the document with all the backup information and the article summary chart and things like that. So if you need anything electronically, another paper copy, just reach out to me. I'll do that. We'll also put it on the website for the public to view the backup information. The one thing, we do have an order of the articles, and the backup information is organized in that order. Obviously, if the order changes, we'll just renumber things and change it accordingly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
I'll take paper, Mr. Cavey.
Sorry, what was that?
I'll take paper.
I
You
got
got
a
it,
nice thick paper it's about 1 inch thick, Scott, for you. Specifically with your name on it.
That's fine.
We're going to tie it to a pigeon. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tisdale. Thank you so much, Mr. Coulter. Move on to the next item here, which is a waiver request under Section 31 of the Town of Stoughton Select Board Alcohol Beverage Licensing Regulations. This is for the Canvas Events LLC at 603 Washington Street. I think we have the members, the officers of online, if I'm mistaken. Yep, Isaac, I see you there.
Hi, we are.
And Stephanie as well. It's wonderful to see you again.
Could you hear me?
I'm able to hear you, yes.
All right, thank you. So are we up? You guys can hear me, correct? Hello?
Yes, we're able to hear you.
Okay, great. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the board and everybody there for giving us the opportunity. I know we met last time in person. It was a very informative conversation. My sister and myself were able to take that information, take it back, and repopulate it. And here we are today. So first and foremost, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. What we wanted to do in the interim, what we were able to do was still proceed with business as usual within the forum of Canvas. And what I wanted to be able to present is a two-tier presentation. We do have some things that we do want to show you, which my sister will do on the second half, but on the first half, just go about, things that we were doing in regards to, having this license and everything else that we want. We do understand the compliance and the legal requirements. We were able to make sure that we abide by that. But what we wanted to discuss is mostly the community benefits that we see could be implemented in what we're doing. Not necessarily creating jobs, but we do. When we do have these events, we do hire, if necessary, doormen, people to come clean, people to do different resources within the environment, within the local area. And that does provide some, create some jobs for the residents there. Another thing as well that I did hear from Tom and everybody else, and thanks so much, Tom, for giving us the advice on how to move forward, is mostly the responsible practices that we're looking to do. We want to make sure that the town understands that we want to work within the aspect of the town. So we want to make sure there's no underage drinking. We want to make sure that there's no outside noises. We want to make sure that there's no disturbances within the community. And what we were able to do that was, when we do have our events, to have people there, a doorman, to make sure that we're regulating if there is drinking, to make sure, one, there's no underage drinking, to make sure, two, that there is no outside noises. So when the events are over, people are not hanging outside the parking lot areas, to make sure as well that we limit what people are drinking, to make sure that it's not a rowdy environment. And most of the events that we do have are bar mitzvahs, wedding showers, baby showers, things of that event where it's mostly family oriented. And what we've seen is an influx in the community asking questions about Canvas, using the event space. We've had, since our last meeting, I believe 9 to 12 events that's been very successful. And more people within the community are asking us, to do different things. And I think that not only doing what we've been doing, but to implement a state that we could also do different events within the community. And I do know that sometimes the town of Stoughton uses these event spaces to do different things within the town. And I think that if possible, we would like to volunteer to host anything that you guys have there, just to give you a sense of what we do, how the decor is, and what kind of environment that we have. In that aspect, you guys could, formally see and be introduced to what we do here at Canvas as well. And I'm trying to think of anything else that we have. When it comes down to reputation, my sister and myself, we're very proud in the businesses that we've ran. We're very proud in making sure that we are responsible, ethical, and we're always learning. What I've learned from the last conversation that we've had is that there's a lot of things that we didn't know. I know we sat there and it was kind of not a divisive conversation, but it got kind of heated there. But the takeaways that I took from it, and my sister as well, was that there's a lot of things that we had to learn about the town. And it's not just, showing up and saying, hey, we're a new business, we want these things just to be more profitable. But what I was able to take away from that was, like, this is a real town. This is a small town, but the town has a history and it's rich within that history as well. And being, neighbors of the town and coming in, doing business, we needed to understand that. And I took some time just to understand how we could work within the community. And I think that, given the opportunity, we'll be able to grow within the community. We're not looking just to start a business and make some money and leave. We're looking to imprint and start something that we be part of the community and grow with it as well. So that's pretty much it. I know my sister has some stuff that she wants to demonstrate and show within what we do within Canvas. And just to surmise, again, just the overview, it is an event space, but what we formalize in is creating different atmosphere. So when people rent this space, we have balloons, we have different things, but it's themed. So that's pretty much the major difference. It's a themed thing that when you come in, if you want maybe a snow theme, a winter theme, or maybe a fantasy theme that we did recently with the Sweet 16, it's pretty much that's what the experience is different from. So it's not just a venue where you just come in and, you know, there's alcohol being served. It's more of an artistic thing where we create different atmospheres and we create different themes. And within that, it does differentiate us from everybody else. And hopefully the town of Stoughton could get a sense to see exactly what we do and how we incorporate that. And then move forward. But the thing I'd like to say as well is that we're always open to criticism. And these are things that we could be open to learning and just being more profitable, but as well being more responsible within the community. And we've been at this for some time. And I think that shows our resilience and our, you know, tenacity, but at the same time, to demonstrate that, you know, we're open-minded and we're willing to learn. You know, you don't know what you don't know until you're faced with it. But as you guys will see, we have that tenacity, but at the same time, we're very humble and we're looking to grow within that. Anything you want to add, Stephanie?
Sure. I just have, before we go on, thank you very much for helping fill us in. And as I said before, it's really great to see you again. I do want to just make sure that the scope of this conversation, this is not directed at you, Mr. Remy, but at really the board, that the scope of the conversation stays within what's being asked for right now. Right now, you are currently not at this moment actually asking for a liquor license. You're asking for a waiver to apply for one. And there's a section of our alcohol policy that I'd like to read just to make sure that people understand what this waiver is and how it works. So this is section 31, waivers for professional establishments. Notwithstanding any of the above requirements, the board may, in its sole uncontestable discretion, grant waivers in full or in part to any of the above local standards upon proper application and after a public hearing to a professional establishment, which is not a restaurant, nightclub, tavern, private club, music or entertainment venue, or similar business, provided that any such waiver does not conflict with state law and the applicant demonstrates such waivers are in the public interest. All regulations not specifically waived shall remain applicable, and any application establishment requiring such waivers shall specify which specific waivers are sought and the reasons therefore. Any such applicant shall be required to adhere to and comply with these regulations, notwithstanding any such waivers applied for or granted to the extent practicable. In granting any such waiver, the board may impose reasonable conditions as it may determine are necessary and or warranted in light of the nature of the waiver. So I don't know if you can tell that was written by a lawyer, but basically to boil it down, there are a number of requirements that are specified in the alcohol policy. That, for example, you know, be a restaurant and so forth. There, we do have a provision where we are allowed to grant a waiver at our discretion, based on essentially being at least convinced that a waiver would be in the public's interest. Okay, so that's just kind of the boiler thing that I just want to make sure we don't get into the conversations that we would normally get into when we're actually granting an alcohol license. Instead, this is just about whether or not to grant this waiver.
Correct.
So thank you very much. Just wanted to set the table. Are there any questions for the applicant? Is there somebody? Yes, Stephanie, was there anything you'd like to add?
I do. I have just a small video that I wanted to show you guys.
Oh, yeah. By all means, please. Thank you.
Pretty much a before and after of different transformations of the venue. So this is what the venue looks like. You guys can see?
We are able to see our screen. It's a little bit small, but that's not your fault. I think it might be a little crowded. Let's see if we-
Sorry.
No, it's not you. It's not you.
So this is what the venue looks like when it's a blank slate. And this is a behind the scenes of the production, just of a specific event, just client event. Again, our teams take 2 to 3 days sometimes to get these events put together in a sense of ensuring that the experience for the end person is exactly what it should be. But again, like I said, this is behind the scenes. We have balloon artists that come in, we get furniture rentals, and this is what the outcome of that behind the scenes is, the product of what it looks like when that was finished. This is a different event. Again, demonstrating how we transformed the venue. This was a smaller, moderate event, 16th birthday party. This was a wedding reception. Transformed the venue. And this was a 70s party, and this is just a small, the most minor version of what we've done, just small Christmas decor in the front, just to not disrupt anybody else's events. And that's what I wanted to show you guys. You guys can give me some feedback on what you've seen, how you feel about it, just hoping that everyone has gotten an understanding of what we do in the canvas. Hence the name, starts off as a blank slate, the canvas, and we transform it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Are there any members of the board who have any questions? Mr. Gito?
What is the floor plan of your space?
It's an open floor plan.
One room?
It's a main room, 3 bathrooms, 1 handicap accessible, and a kitchenette area.
How many people would you be able to accommodate?
146.
But we try to stay, we don't come close to that number, even though that's what the budget states. We try to stay closer to maybe 30% or 40% lesser than that.
We do cap the client events. We've let people max at just 100, just in an effort to be able to control the ins and outs.
Thank you.
So without seeing any further questions, I will actually just add that many of the concerns that the board has that led to this policy, the alcohol policy, being directed towards certain types of businesses, I think you, in my view, made a very strong case that you're mindful of those concerns, that you are looking to do something quite different, that doesn't interfere with the what we view as some of the needs of the community, and so there's I don't see anything at all negative about this. I think it looks like a fun place. I really love that last picture in particular. That was some I don't know. There's some interesting lighting. It was a 70s party.
Yes.
Yeah, it looked like a fun time. So you'll have my support in this, and I think that to be able to move on to the next stage, at least, of actually applying for the alcohol license. Right. In my view, I think you've shown that you appreciate our concerns, and you're looking to work with us, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And some of the things that we wanted to address was the parking, to make sure that there's no influx of traffic and everything was smooth with people coming in and out the parking lot. The next item was noise. We definitely want to make sure that we respect our neighbors, businesses, and people as well. So we make sure that the noise is at a level where it's not disturbing the neighbors within the community. And we want to make sure if there is alcohol being served, that either we have someone there to observe and make sure that it doesn't get out of hand. So these are things that we're doing preemptively before there's any issue. We don't see any issues happening, but out of respect for the town, we want to make sure that we are critical in making sure that everything is smooth, and everything has been smooth. But those are just the type of steps that we're willing to take and that we are taking just to be responsible in this space.
Thank you. Before we move on to motion, I do want to ask if there's anybody either online or, oh, sorry, Mr. Carrera, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Who's going to handle the alcohol in the place? You said, oh, we're going to have somebody. You can't just have somebody. Somebody has to be certified.
Correct.
You got to know what they're doing. And I'm not.
So I'll handle that. That's no problem. So when it comes to that, everyone that's handling alcohol has to be tips and alcohol server training certified. So the people handling that, they have the tips or alcohol server training certificates. There's no food, but however, they are certified within the food service permits as well. Not that we are serving any food in that capacity, but they are within the health and safety inspection reports and everything that we do need. We do make sure that they are able to safe serve and have the certifications and are trained. And that's not just for legal aspect, well, actually for legal aspects as well and for insurance. So we have to make sure that these people who are handling alcohol are certified and trained, and we definitely make sure that they are.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. and Ms. Remy. The first question is regarding your facility, I guess you would call it your kitchen area. Are you planning to eventually expand so you have a full kitchen, or is your intent to maintain the business as is? And what I mean by that, currently it's a function hall. Mm-hmm. Next steps, are you planning long-term changing this to a restaurant? So I'm really trying to get to the kitchen part. Are you trying to build out a kitchen so it can become a restaurant?
At this point, I could let my sister elaborate as well. At this point, we have no plans on expanding into a restaurant type of situation. That's not within the plans. We just want to maximize the space and how it's being used and stay within that business model that we do have. And just another aspect too within the certification, just to go back to that question, we do train everybody in-house in preventing underage drinking. We do check and make sure if there's any question, if someone's coming for alcohol, to make sure that they double check. We're not serving anybody if there is any question for that. There's training for managing intoxicated patrons. We've never had that issue, but that is something that we do train them if there is an issue to call the authorities, how to neutralize the person and everything in that sense, in that space. But that's pretty much that. I'll let my sister go ahead and expand on the kitchen part.
Hi. So pretty much because the people who come in with the food are catering staff, different restaurants, different vendor relationships. We don't intend on building out and having a full-on kitchen. The expectation or the intention is not to ever be cooking in the building, but the prep area that we have as a kitchenette is normally used by chefs that do come in. They'll table the things, they'll put stuff on the appetizer carts, they'll put them on the servers and chafing dishes, but it's never cooked in-house, and that's not an intention that we foresee.
Thank you very much for that explanation. My second question, it's really why we developed the policy the way we did and why your current business is non-conforming use. So with that said, my question to you is, can you describe to me if there will be a hardship to your business as a result? And I know the license is down the road, but this is a precursor to you asking us for a license. So you seem like you do have a thriving business. We haven't talked about dollars and cents or the balance sheet, but you seem an expert in your field. So I ask if you could describe if this would be a hardship if you are not awarded the waiver.
I can speak on this, Isaac.
Sure, no problem. Just I know we're not going over the balance sheet, but just for instance, right, some of these things, the balloons, the preparation, the clients take the burden of that, right? And we have some of these events where they're spending $30,000, $40,000 just on furniture, bringing in different things, leasing and renting different things just to make the event look the way it looks. When we draw that type of clientele, the aspect of alcohol, whether it's wine and beer, is a question that comes up a lot. And what we've seen in trying to be competitive when we go out for these bids, or we go to these events and we go to the wedding events, and we're talking to potential clients, the question does come up. We try to talk around it without being misleading. But we are very upfront in saying, hey, we don't have a liquor license, but these are the things that we can do. And we are realizing we haven't lost a lot of business because of it. I don't want to, mislead the board, but we do see that when it's not a reassurance that we could give the client, it's like, and we just want to be competitive. So it is something that we foresee could be a major issue in that aspect, and just growing the business and drawing the right clientele. And we just want to get ahead of it, if that answers the question.
And I can just add on to that. I do attend these expos. I do attend these networking events. As you know, most of it is a group of women, so to speak. So I do attend a lot of these events, and it is really competitive. Although we're able to set the scene, if we're not able to meet all the client needs, they do opt out. And in the events that we have been successful hosting, they have not just been celebratory, some of them have been repasses and celebrations of life. So not necessarily those people who would be at a wedding expo. So we have missed out on significant opportunities to host individuals who would like to have that option. The wedding that you did see in there was a Christian event. They didn't want alcohol, so that kind of set that out. But other than that, we are significantly challenged when we have to compete against other venues in other towns that will offer full service.
Correct. And I'll add one more thing. The funny thing about it is, when we do serve, it's not really a major aspect of the night. We don't really see running out of alcohol or people drinking a lot. I think it's more of a mental thing, right? Where people want something that they just want it. If they can't have it, all of a sudden it's like, you guys don't have alcohol. But if we do have it, it's, if we do present that to them, or just the aspect of saying that we could do that, we notice that it's something that they would be interested in. And it's not something that not having it is I just want to formulate it in the right way, bear with me. But it's just more of the mental aspect of telling somebody we don't have that capability, they get turned off by it, rather than saying we do, and then we could just incorporate that business. That's pretty much what it comes down to, not to overspeak.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions? Is there a motion? Yes.
I have a question.
Okay.
And it may be just a question that I have of us rather than the applicant. Is the waiver separate from the license, in that if you grant a waiver in order to be able to get a license, but the waiver would seem to relate to how the business is run, as opposed to just serving liquor. And if the person is a bad neighbor, do you have to go to the ABCC to deal with that? Or is that a separate issue in terms of revoking the waiver to be able to have the business?
So the waiver allows them to put an application in. Right now, they can't even apply for a liquor license. So once they've applied, at that point, not sure if you withdraw the waiver necessarily, but the license itself, you probably revoke the license itself, and potentially later the waiver. But ultimately, we're right now we're just answering whether or not we will entertain an application, where fire, police, everybody else will give us their reports. We'll have floor plans drawn up, and we'll be able to judge whether or not we want to provide an alcohol license to this specific establishment. But right now, I at least the way I read it is a little bit more broad. It's just to say whether or not, in our discretion, if we choose to accept an application to consider it, based on the fact that we see that their business doesn't conflict with state laws, and the applicant demonstrates such waivers are in the public interest, or just good for the town, good for business. I guess there's also the sort of contrapositive that it's not, bad for the public interest, right? If the applicant was describing a situation where, it was going to be something that would raise alarms for us, that's one thing. But so long as we're seeing some sort of a public interest, we can grant a waiver to accept an application. At that point, we can choose to accept or deny, the license. We don't have to do that, and that's when we would be probably talking about the nature of the business itself, I think.
Correct.
Ms. Roberts.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to my fellow board members. When we originally wrote the policy, we were all in agreement the direction we were going. When I read the description of this potential applicant, they use, as an example, the one person we made an exemption for. But I think, and I believe that because we've made that one exemption, that we're going to see this come before us time and time again. They're going to use that as an example, and they're saying that it was a precedent that we set because we made an exemption. However, in our policy, it is so clean and well written. It's each individual business stands on its own merit. So we look at it individually, but still we have that. Why did we write this policy? We wrote the policy because we wanted to restrict our licenses to businesses such as restaurants and taverns that actually sell alcohol for their ongoing operations. So I just wanted to be clear, and I just like to say these things out loud so I'm clear with what our policy was and what our intent is. So thank you for bearing with me as I talk through that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may weigh in on this from a historical perspective, this particular case was the first matter I took up on the first day I arrived in the town of Stoughton. It's when the previous applicant walked in the door. So I did a considerable amount of research on what the policy was that the board passed and why the board passed it. And there was a clear intent to make sure that Stoughton doesn't play host to major out-of-town sponsored raves. And so the policy was set up to require a kitchen from which you would serve food. And then an applicant came along who appeared to be the type of business and the type of function room that would fit beautifully in Stoughton. And this board agreed or decided to create a variance or a waiver process for those who don't serve food, but for whom their business model fits in with the culture of our town, of your town. And so that's what the variance is for. It's the board saying that we think this, if you issue it, that we think this is a good business. It brings additional resources to town for people to take advantage of. No, it does not have a kitchen. It brings in catered food, but it's not a rave either. It's a specialty niche business. And as the chairman pointed out, this variance is simply saying that we're not going to disqualify you from applying for a liquor license. And as the chairman pointed out, at the time you take up the matter of the liquor license, all of the relevant questions that are always going to be asked are going to be asked. And the board members have a right to accept or reject that application based upon the substance of the liquor license application. This is almost like a prerequisite to get to the liquor license application. Do the applicants, on a case-by-case basis, meet the needs of Stoughton? Does it make Stoughton a better, more culturally desirable a place to visit, a destination? And if the answer is yes to that, and you wish to waive that element of your policy that requires a kitchen to serve hot food, then the variance would likely be in order. If the members do not feel that it meets your requirements for a variance or a waiver, then you rejected it, and then they would not be able to apply for a liquor license. I've met with the applicants after the last meeting, as you requested. I do believe they have the intent to bring a niche business to Stoughton that we don't have, one that will be offered on the high end of service quality. And so I'll leave it at that. It's not my vote to take. I just wanted to give you the historical background that I've been involved in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So are there any, actually, let me just ask, because we'll make sure I cover this before we get there. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this application? Okay, we'll start, just because she has the mic, we'll start off with Ms. Walsh.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. Everything I've heard so far seems to be positive. I might remind you that there was a facility in town that hosted events that had no kitchen at all because they didn't have a grease trap. Whenever I rented that place, I had to bring in everything. And but they had a license to serve alcohol. So I don't see any harm in granting the waiver. If there's an issue or a problem, then the next step may never happen.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morris.
I personally would welcome this business, something new for our residents, and they sound pretty responsible to me, like they would take it very seriously.
Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, so is there a motion by the board?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. So motion was made by Mr. McCrisky, seconded by Vice Chair Carrera. All in favor, Mr. Carrera?
Yes.
Mr. Gito?
No.
Sorry, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Mr. McCrisky?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. The motion passes 3-2. And so, Mr. and Mrs. Remy, you've got a waiver.
Thank you.
And so at this point, you have an opportunity to put an application in for an alcohol license, and we'll go from there. Best of luck to you.
All right, thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, there's one final item on the agenda for tonight. It's the executive session. There's 2 items on there. Item A, executive session pursuant to open meeting law, chapter 30A, section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation concerning the Stoughton Media Access Corp. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating or litigating position of the board, and the chair so declares, and I do so declare. Item B, executive session pursuant to open meeting law, chapter 38, section 21A2, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel and contract negotiations with non-union personnel, chief of police. Is there a motion to enter executive session?
So made.
Made by Ms. Roberts, seconded by Mr. Gito. All in favor, we'll start with Vice Chair Carrera.
I'm hoping that I can leave this meeting and get into that one, so yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Gito? Ms. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. McCrisky?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. The time is 9:12. We'll be adjourning from executive session, now returning to the open session. So thank you all very much. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.